Welcome back to Queens Behind the Scenes, where we peel back the curtain on the women shaping culture, business, and legacy in ways that matter. I'm your host, Charise Beckett. Today's guest, Woo Honey. She's the kind of woman whose receipts stretch from PBS, boardrooms to Billy Porter sets, from legal counsel to cultural change agent. She's a storyteller, a strategist, a civic powerhouse, and she does it all with precision and style. I am honored to welcome to the show Denielle Pemberton. Welcome, Queen.
Hello there. I'm so happy to be here and I'm so proud of you and excited to see all that you have done. This is amazing.
Well, I appreciate you. Well, put your crown on because you're in the hot seat today. Let's go. All right. Now, Danielle, we are going to have to start with the fabulous. You were the producer on the BET style documentary hosted by the Billy Porter. Talk to us about it. What drew you to that project?
Well, it really, I would say everything in my career and everything that I've done has really just been a function of circumstances, good fortune, and some preparation. So the truth of the matter is my partner on that project was Lynn Robinson. And Lynn and I have been friends since, for 25 plus years. We raised our kids together. And she, as the director of the program, was in a bind, came to me and said, look, the writer that I hired isn't able to work on the project. Do you have some time? And again, as you know, I have a full-time, real-time job.
I got full-time.
Right? Full-time, real-time, full-time
right.
job.
Right.
Working for DSG Global in the executive search space, but I had sort of a long weekend. And I said, you know what? I love writing. I love research. I am the child of a mom that was a teacher and a librarian. So I've always enjoyed documentary programming. I sort of made my move in-house from legal, initially joining Discovery Channel. So I was the lawyer that did standards and practices for Discovery Channel when they were an enterprise of fewer than 150 lawyers. So I've always been in the entertainment and media space. And I said, I can do this. So I kind of locked myself in the house for 4 days and we came up with a treatment and kind of took it from there. And we had the great fortune. Lynn is, a fabulous director and also well-connected and a Pittsburgher. And
Pittsburgher, okay, Steelers.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm a New Yorker. I ride.
I know that.
Giants. But Pittsburgh ties came in handy, and she knew Billy Porter from high school days.
Wow.
So
okay.
When we were working on the project, she reached out to him, and the circumstances worked out. The alignment was there, the timing was right, and he came on board. So it was really, a wonderful thing to work on, because the truth is, there were so many hidden gems. I mean, we could have done a 6-part documentary.
You could have.
You could have content.
You could have
content. Yeah.
You really could have. And I went to your screening, right? It was amazing. It was amazing. And you really could have done, y'all scratched the surface of a large piece of our culture. Especially with Black people and style. We, Nikki Giovanni made a poem about it. Our style is, it's a pinnacle of our existence. We are stylish people and we make things when there's no things. And so I think that is like a part of that amazing. So what was it like working with Billy and telling that story that celebrates style as a culture?
Well, obviously, he's the epitome of style and takes it to the edge, right?
Yes.
But then you had these stories. We covered the first Black models. We covered Dapper Dan. We covered, individuals that were in the theater. We, of course, covered Queen Beyonce. And that was before Renaissance. We produced that.
This was before Cowboy Carter and Renaissance.
Cowboy Carter and before Renaissance. So can you imagine? That would have been another 4 hours of film, right?
Yes.
And then we obviously covered, former First Lady Michelle Obama. And of course, she's getting ready to release a book in November that will cover her style and sort of the style moments. But we got a snippet of it that we captured in the documentary. So it really was just amazing. And Billy brought a level of energy and care to the project that really gave it, gravitas. We felt like This was something that was sort of probably produced more in the vein of a PBS documentary with flair, right? So you had the depth, you had the historical context. It wasn't slapped together. And it kind of, I think, gave the BET audience and the Viacom family a different look on sort of how we capture style.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is you need a part two. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're ready when they are. We're ready
Yes.
when they are, but they've got a whole lot of ownership and other things going on
There's
over there
lots
that
going
are,
on.
well, there's a lot going on in media, exactly.
It's a
So,
lot going on there.
but we're here when they're ready.
I would love that. And I would go to support another screening. I mean, I thought it was an absolutely fabulous project. I was happy to be invited to see you in a different, operating in a different space, which is always so cool because we are such dynamic people. And to be able to show your gifts in like a different way, I think is paramount, especially for women, especially for Black women. We are so versatile in the gifts that we have. Do you feel like storytelling through fashion can shape power and perception in ways that corporate storytelling sometimes like can't?
Absolutely. I think that part of the reason I do the work that I do in the executive search space is because I feel that oftentimes people that go into corporate spaces aren't able to be their authentic selves. And fashion, how you show up, how you dress, how you present, it's probably part of your narrative, right? It's not the whole you. Obviously, what's inside is what really counts. But I think that we're able, when people are able to be authentic and work in spaces that allow them to grow, they thrive. And so that's why it's really important. And, you and I met in the human capital HR space.
Space. Yep.
When you get it right, and when someone is able, like, who shows up in the interview, shows up first day of work, shows up every day in the boardroom, those are the people that are more successful. And of course, we all have a little bit of the capacity to code switch and do what we need to do and for different audiences. But that through line of authenticity is really there. And I think anytime you're able to be creative and have a creative outlet, that for me has always been sort of the thing that I've always gone back to, whether it's redecorating a room or refurbishing something. Like, I think the creative outlet is something that I've always taken comfort in.
Yeah. Beyond media, you're also deeply involved in civic storytelling, especially through your work as the board chair of the March On Festival. Why is it important to center civil rights through cultural production today?
Well, I love the team at March On. I mean, what they've been doing for the past 10 plus years has just been amazing. And I think, look, part of telling the story of civil rights, part of getting people to remember the importance of where we've been and where we hope to go, is keeping the stories first, sort of at the front line and at front of mind for young people, especially.
Especially.
And the truth of the matter is, you have to market to young people. You have to create digital and visual content to sort of remind them and to engage them. So the March On Festival allows us to sort of once a year come together for a week. And well, actually, we're going to run a bit longer than a week, because we actually are going to now also do digital distribution of films and make films available.
That's
But at
cool.
least for that week, the in person presentations will allow people to convene, gather, have talkbacks. We're going to be partnering this year with the Woolly Mammoth Theater. We're going to be partnering with many others around the city to really create venues and spaces where people can sort of, gather information, but also share information. And sometimes traditionally civil rights films and things of that nature have been really heavy. And I think the best way to get through heavy content is oftentimes doing it in community and really being able to at least absorb the shock of some of what we've been through as a people, as a collective.
Yeah. You once said that storytelling can become strategy. What does that mean for women in leadership?
Look, communication is always paramount. And what people buy into is your story, it is your narrative. And this goes back to being authentic and being able to say exactly who you are, what you stand for, and really what motivates you to do the work that you do. So, I take, for example, in the executive search space, we're oftentimes interviewing candidates that have the credentials. Anyone that we put on a slate can do the job. But really, what motivates the person, why they show up, and why they're likely to be more successful than the next person is usually linked to their story. It's why they're working, what impacted them as a child, as a student, as a working mom, as a working dad, as the parent of a child with a disability, whatever their backstory is, whatever makes them get up each day and go to work and fight for whatever they believe in, that's what's going to separate the candidate A from candidate B. Part of what we do is take the time to get to the heart of their story. So I feel like I'm absorbing stories every day. Every time I interview people, you're understanding why they do what they do and how they move through work life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. I mean, I'm writing a book right now and it's
Great.
about leadership. Yes, yes, yes. And I will be having a tour. So of course, I'm probably going to be asking you a favor.
Okay, great. We have a leadership institute, so that would be great.
Yes. Yes. So I am writing this book, and it's so funny that you say that because I am digging back into my life as a leader. This is a leadership book, and as a
Mhm.
person who, not to give away too much on the book, but like a lot of my life, what happened in my life led me to be prepared to lead today, or as a
Mhm.
person who is an executive, or a leader of a family, or all of those things. And I was been reliving all of these things, even the trauma, right, from my life that's led me here. And it's so true what you just said. Like, you know, that what the story is, who the person sometimes, their story is
Mhm.
who they are, right? And who they have become. And it just became so apparent to me while doing this book how integral my life
Mhm.
experiences, not just my professional experiences in leadership,
Right.
but my life experiences, how integral those were in becoming the person and leader that I am, and the person and leader that has come up with this framework, right? It's the story.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, and at a time when people are trying to minimize or challenge people based on, insignificant data or qualities or, character or not even character, human traits, is really important, more important than ever for people in power to be able to discern and really think about people's stories, how they're going to show up and how they're going to not only represent you as an organization, but how they're going to interact with people, motivate people, encourage people, and get the best out of the people they're leading. So it's one thing to be self motivated and a single person contributor, but the difference between those who can do the job and those that can get people to follow them to achieve great things, that's the difference.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I mean, that is the difference. Now, you have done extraordinary work with PBS, including the Chautauqua at 150 celebration with Wynton Marsalis All Rise. What did the project mean to you?
Well, I had always heard about Chautauqua in the abstract, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know much about it.
Me
It's
neither.
one of those things, you hear it, you try to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to spell it, but it wasn't until
Had to look it up,
I
honey.
right, yeah. And well, it's interesting because I met this woman, Megan Smith, who, we've become friendly. And it turns out that Megan's family has been participating in Chautauqua for years. And she was an early founder, employee, one of the early employees at Google. And
Wow. Okay.
she, went on to be sort of the chief information officer or technology officer under the Obama administration. But with that said, one day I met her and she introduced me to her mother, who she said had grew up at Chautauqua, and the family really had been an integral part of that community. Fast forward several years later, um, Lynn Robinson again approaches me and says, we have this opportunity to produce this documentary. And it's kind of an interesting concept because Chautauqua was celebrating their 150th anniversary. They wanted and had Wynton Marsalis teed up to sort of be the closing performer for mega celebration. And the decision was made to film his symphony, All Rise, which is an amazing work of art, on site at Chautauqua. So again, how do you kind of bring those two very distinct things together and make it somewhat cool? So that was the challenge, right? So we put our heads together and kind of came up with an outline and a treatment and pitched it to PBS and worked with the team there and pulled together this project that really came together so well. And if people have a chance to see it, I think you can still stream it on PBS Passport. Yeah, but it's really wonderfully done. And, Wynton Marsalis was on site there, and there's some really great footage of him working with the students there because they got the Baltimore students, not Baltimore, I'm sorry, Buffalo, the Buffalo Student Symphony Orchestra together. They participated. So it really was a great effort. Again, just sort of opportunity meets preparation. And again, I loved hearing what's really fascinating about Chautauqua that most people don't know. Finger Lakes region of New York, but there were several. One of the key things about Chautauqua was from the beginning, it was open to people of all races. So the Institute was basically created for individuals that couldn't go to high school or college, but at least for certain weeks during the summer, they could go and get some baseline education and sort of hear great speakers and see musicians and all of the rest. But most importantly, African Americans were permitted to participate in those workshops, seminars, and all of the rest. So there's a great history there that we were able to tell, and really proud of it.
You should be. And you should be. You just do amazing work. And right now, so like, what do you think that like public broadcasting and events like that contribute to the national consciousness right now around culture?
Well, with everything that's going on in the world, it's kind of hard to even imagine, a world without a vibrant, public media. What people don't realize is while those of us on the coast and those of us with means have the ability to plop down, $15, $29 here and there for subscription, there are many parts of our heartland and parts of this country where people rely on free over the air television.
Yes.
And it also means that their children learn how to read or figure out the alphabet or get social emotional intelligence from children's content produced by Fred Rogers Company and others that really show children how to be in the world, how to be a neighbor, how to be a friend, how to be a responsible sibling, how to take care of themselves, how to practice proper hygiene. All of these through lines are subtly embedded in the content, the children's content in particular, not to mention the documentary programs and all of the rest that just, there's no place for that anymore, reality TV, but really the world's come down to, dating shows, reality TV, or home improvement. And where else can you get like really great documentary program to learn something different?
Yeah, if my family will tell you, I love documentaries, all kinds. Like I just absolutely, it's my favorite kind of television. I love true crime the most. I'm not gonna lie. They'll be like, my family is like, don't turn on a murder show. She's gonna be right on top of it. But I love also, like, I was watching a documentary on orcas. Like I love things like that. Like I was watching one on orcas and like just how smart they are. I would have never learned some of these things without that type of like public broadcasting. It's just that really was very, very important in me growing up of having, public broadcast. So right now is a very interesting space, I would say, for us culturally. So let's talk power moves. You pivoted from media and legal to executive search and board leadership, which is a transition. What helped you navigate that shift?
A really strong community of female friends that basically said you could do it. I had no intention of sort of leaving the law, but I had a friend that is an industrial psychologist, and I actually spent a series of, I think, 3 or 4 days with her doing those dynamic tests that sort of help you figure out, what your strengths are and what line of work you should be in. And I felt like, okay, I've been practicing law for 25 plus years. I think this is what I do. But interestingly enough, she came to me and said, well, you should be in sales. And I said, oh, absolutely not. I hate selling. I mean, even, when my kids would have to sell, cookies or
fundraisers and stuff. Yeah. I don't want to ask people to do that. Yeah.
I would just
buy
write
it.
the check. I would
Me
just
too.
buy it and then have a cupboard full of popcorn.
Me too.
But when we took a deeper dive, she said, it's not that you really should sell, but you have a strong sense of what's a good value. And I do. I'm a value shopper. I'm a thrifter. I'm really about like a value proposition for sort of everything I do. That's kind of the through line. I'm kind of resourceful, and my kids would say cheap, but I say frugal.
Resourceful is a good one.
Resourceful, right. Resourceful. So that was kind of the start of it. And then again, my kids were at the point where I could travel more. And I had also been involved during the Obama administration with the White House Fellows Program. I'd been one of the judges for the program and really came to value sort of the assessment process, the interview process, all that goes into finding talented leaders and matching talented leaders with opportunities. And as you may know, the White House Fellows Program is sort of, a nonpartisan opportunity for really dynamic corporate and private sector individuals to try their hand and serve the government. And they can be placed in any, from Department of Defense to Interior to, by EPA, anything. And that really sort of whetted my appetite, coupled with the fact that, like we all do, and I know you do it, we're always mentoring people, coaching people, giving people advice, trying to send out job postings to get people placed.
Yes.
So I've always been doing that. And I'm like, well, let me try to do this for some money. So, I met the folks at Diversified. I talked to people at other search firms and, Diversified / DSG Global. It felt right. The firm was founded 50 years ago by a woman who worked on Capitol Hill. And at the time, sort of the best a woman could hope for was to be like in the typing pool, an administrative assistant. And from those humble beginnings, she sort of grew a company that put women and underrepresented people in place. And, we represent everyone, but I think sort of the special sauce of our firm has been to really authentically maintain relationships with our clients and our placements. And over the years, people have grown and they know that if we call them for a job, they really have a shot at getting a job. And, the firm was kind of putting together comprehensive slates long before, it was in vogue to have diverse slates. I mean, the point is, if you're going to run a company and you're going to run a company that sells product to America, then you probably should have someone in the boardroom that knows what's trending with respect to the latest fashion or food or whatever it is.
Or whatever it is, right?
Whatever it is,
that's fact.
It's facts. You need as many people around the table helping you problem solve with different points of view so you can get to the best possible answer quickly. And that's what we do. And that to me is really exciting. So when I go out on a pitch or I try to talk to people about the firm, it's really not about selling. It's really about, I really believe the value proposition of having really smart people at the table. And I think that because we, as individuals, me and all the partners in the firm, I'm proud to say I'm, a partner and
I love that for you.
And we all really invest in our friendships and our families and our communities and our churches and whatever we're into as a firm. I think that's part of our value. And when you have that level of investment with people, you find good people because they kind of come to you because they believe that
they do.
You're going to do good things. So that's been this journey. I call it, and I think this is probably, I would say this is my third act. I considered the first act sort of court law firm life. And then that was my New York life. And then I moved to DC and kind of had, I was at Discovery and then Time Warner and AOL and Talis Communications and did the 15 years at PBS. So now this is the third act.
I love this. I
With a
really
little
do.
bit of the writing and producing on the side.
Yes, and it's funny because you just said something that's so paramount, right? Like you talked about like anytime you have any type of product, right? And you are trying to market to consumers in America,
Right.
you need to have different types of voices like in the boardroom. And I'm looking at an incident that I guess happened even today with like American Eagle or something with this like jeans ad. I don't know if you saw it, but some people, did you see
I
it
haven't
yet?
seen it yet. No, I haven't seen it
Oh
yet because
Lord,
I was
my
in
kids
meetings
were
all day
blowing up.
today.
My
Really?
kids
Oh,
were,
wow.
yes, they were blowing up my phone about it, but it was like this. She has great genes, and then change the G to a J, but it's a blonde haired, blue eyed.
Ah,
And I'm like, and my kids are like, that was on purpose. But I'm also like, no, you would just really be surprised at how real tone deaf people really just like. I was like,
right. Yeah.
I don't know if it was on purpose or not.
Yeah, they didn't have anyone in the room that would say, in this environment, eugenetics is probably not something you want to wade into.
Yes, and that's exactly. And so we were just talking about that, and then I brought to them. I said, remember the whole H&M thing with the little black child that was wearing the monkey outfit, like
Right.
like
Right.
who was in the room, And so it's just, with everything going on right now, you would think people would be more prepared, but actually,
Yeah.
it seems like we are less prepared
Yeah.
anymore for these types of things. Now, for you, like, what would you tell women that who want to prepare for board level leadership? How do they know when they're ready? And even if they're not invited yet, how do you get there? How can they prepare for that?
That's a good question. I think, part of the preparation, I can say that some of the things that people look for is really a level of expertise, a brand that, as your individual brand, that allows you to be an expert in the room on something. It could be finance, it could be media, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be, any number of things. Or you could
Yeah,
be a sector expert, an expert on
media,
media, an expert on cosmetics, an expert on, footwear, whatever it is.
right?
So I think, there's no substitute for sort of honing your craft and kind of figuring out what your area of expertise is going to be. There are some amazing resources out there that people can start with looking at their local NACD chapter, which is the National Association of Corporate Directors. They usually have monthly meetings. There are different chapters in different cities that allow you to learn about different things, understand board governance, sort of understands what things are important to listen to and watch. There are several board readiness programs for individuals that are looking to do work. I know Stanford University has one. I believe Northwestern has one. There's one where I've been a faculty member out at Santa Clara University, which is really well respected. And that board readiness program is great. AESC, the Association of Executive Search Consultants, has a portal that's tagged Blue Steps, which is on the AESC portal, that will allow you to fill out baseline information, get your resume out there. Search firms that are looking for individuals for their boards oftentimes refer to Blue Steps. Getting involved, while nonprofit board experience doesn't directly translate into corporate board experience, oftentimes when you're on the larger nonprofit boards like your local YMCA or Urban League or United Way or Red Cross, oftentimes corporate leaders are parts of those
Those
boards. So
boards.
you begin to know the players and understand who the corporate leaders are in your community. And again, if you do good work and you are dedicated and you have the stuff, then you're beginning to make those connections. So I think that's kind of the first way to start. Oftentimes, people get their first board from someone they know that they've met at some point in their career. And as I often say, you never really know who's watching. At some point, you get tapped, and it's someone that you may have impressed, 2 years ago, and you didn't think anything of it. And then they give you a call, or when they're looking for someone with your area of
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah. You mentioned the AESC. You received the AESC Idea Award for championing inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. What does that look like in action, but outside of the buzzwords? I mean, we know, and we know where we are. What does that mean?
Well, it's funny because I was really, honored to receive it. But it was interesting because part of the work that we as a committee did at that time was really to craft AESC's, um, you know, diversity pledge, because that's the language that people were using at that time, which was what, 4
Yes.
years ago, which is crazy. But really, it was interesting because well-intentioned people had put together a draft, and part of the draft had language that read something like, we are committed to placing well qualified minorities or qualified, diverse candidates. And this
Yeah,
was a
I don't
pretty
like
good
that
sized
language.
meeting. Well, yeah, it was a pretty good sized meeting, and I kind of like looked to the right, looked to the left, and realized that I was kind of the only person in the room that was going to say, like, why is it that when you speak about a woman or when you speak about a person of color, the word qualified has to be added there, but you don't say that for other candidates? And, but it took months for us to work through that language. I mean, and really, these were really well intended people,
Of
but it
course.
took a minute for people to understand how offensive it is for someone to say that just by virtue of your name being on a list, you had to be qualified or run some extra mile that any other name on the list didn't have to work through. We did that work, and I think I'm really proud of it, and I think our industry and the people that belong to AESC are really trying to do the work and do the right thing and really focus on competencies and recognize that, like, who sets the rules about who's qualified are the very people that frame the qualifications around what they have
The
or what they
yeah,
don't
or what?
have. They
Right,
don't have,
right.
right? Because they want to make sure, like, I'm gonna, it's like when you play golf with someone and they give you some extra strokes, right? I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I think it's really important. I always use the example, we had a really interesting scenario when I first kind of moved into search. I was working with a partner, and we went to a client meeting, and they were looking for the next president of their bank. And they went through and they said, we only want to talk to people from these schools. We only want this. We only want that. And then, of course, at the end, they said, well, yeah, we would we would like to diversify and make sure that we have a diverse slate. And we said, well, we hire everyone, we'll screen everyone will meet the mark. And yes, we will make sure you have a diverse slate. But the reality is, everything that you just asked for, your incumbent did not have. They went to a school I had never heard of. They came out of an industry that was not really directly related to banking. Everything that you so the question was, what has changed that makes anyone that's requiring this next person to have to meet this standard, this new standard of perfection? And they really couldn't answer the question. But more importantly, when we spent the time with them, we realized that as a bank, they needed a president, but more importantly, as an organization, they were dealing with technology, digital transformation, online banking, the threat of paperless statements, cyber threats, like all of these different things
Mm-hmm.
that were different than what banking was 10 years
Right.
prior, right? And at the end of the day, we ended up placing as their president a gentleman that happened to be a Black man, but had been a chief technology officer, because they needed a technologist more than they needed a bank president or someone who had previously been a president at a bank. So I think that when people are looking to place people, they really have to sit and think, Like, what are they really trying to achieve? Because if you're trying to bring broader voices to the table, but you're saying, well, in order for you to be a bank president, you had to have been a bank president. But we know that the number of women and people of color and underrepresented people that are bank presidents may be one.
Right.
You're not going to get that. You're
not going to have
by
the
design,
experience.
right?
Yeah.
You're by
Like, right.
design, right? You're by design saying you're excluding a whole swath of people
Yeah.
that may very well be able to solve all of the problems you have, but you've got to open up, the aperture. So that's what's fun about this work.
How do you have these conversations to a point, and I have to ask this, and even personally, that they don't get frustrating for you? Because it does sometimes, like, you're having these conversations, and for me, it's like, why do I have to tell you that? And my mom always says, honey, your expectations, you need to really balance them.
Yeah, no, you do. Look, I generally always assume, um, you know, uh, sincerity and non-malicious intent, right? I
Yeah.
really try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I assume people don't know what they don't know.
That's
And I
right.
also realize that even with people that I'm close to, who happen to represent other cultures or races or whatever, that when the world is centered around you and you walk into a room and you are always the majority, you don't even know how to look at the underside of the coin.
Yeah.
But the minute they walk into, say, my spaces or something with my family, and they look around and they're like, oh, I'm the only X here, I'm like, yeah, that's my world every day.
Every day.
Every day. People don't know what they don't know, and you just try to, coach people,
Yeah.
and kind of say, like, hey, have you ever thought about this, or did this occur to you? And like I said, if they're sincere and willing to learn and grow, people are usually receptive, but sometimes it takes some people longer.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just thankful to have people like you, like extraordinary women like you. And I have had India on my show. Like, I've had these amazing women teaching me so much along the way. I mean, I ask that question genuinely because I get so frustrated, because I'm like, why am I having this conversation? Like, you from Washington, D.C., chocolate city. Like, why am I having to have a conversation with you,
Right.
like, about these things?
Yeah. No, it's true, and that's why you have to have a village and sounding boards and allies in the workspace, because sometimes it can't be us having the conversations.
Yes.
I will say that I think, more often than not, I have, um, really leaned on some really well-intended and great allies to have the conversations. It's almost like, when you see relay teams. I'm
Yes.
like, I'm passing the baton. Like, you've got to take it. You've got to take it the
You
next
got to
level.
take this one.
You got to take this one. So I'm really grateful. I've got some good colleagues. I'm like, I'm passing the baton.
Well, at least you do have that. I mean, that's all. I mean, and we all need that. You've got a resume that says force, but your work does reflect intention, legacy, and balance. How do you stay grounded in the midst of doing so much across so many sectors? I know being at the vineyard does not hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh goodness, I just moved my thing. Yeah, no, that really helps tremendously. And I think, the biggest thing has been, again, community. I've got, two kids, 27, 24. When I was married, we always made sure that we had a great community of people around them. Been very fortunate, though I've lost my parents when they were here. They were great and always supportive. I've got a great brother and sister-in-law and family. I've got, as I mentioned, Lynn Robinson and I have been in sort of the same book club for 25 plus years.
Wow.
We raised our kids together, many of us, with, play dates with the kids on one side of the basement and the moms on the other. So I think just all of those touch points, and I try to really, I worry that some of the younger people who rely solely on media and the digital world for their outlets. I keep reminding them it's so important to have community. It's so important to be able to go into spaces and places, look across the room and sort of nod at someone and see someone from your past. It's great. I just went this afternoon, I went to a book event for Alelia Bundles, who wrote the book Joy Goddess, which is
Yeah.
chronicling her great grandmother's book, great grandmother's life, Alelia Walker, Madam C.J. Walker's daughter. And again, walked into the room and ran into someone that literally I studied for the bar with years ago. We used to meet at the library and see each other. And that's just great. I mean, I think that that's what keeps you grounded. You say, okay, well, we fight another day.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had Joelle Murray on my show. She talks about community and connection, and it is so important. And I always talk about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whereas like belonging is a part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And right? And so, I mean, it's based in science, and you're so right. So, what is one piece of advice you'd give a woman listening who's ready to step into more power, but still feels the weight of like maybe too much responsibility and not enough invitation?
Well, I think I would say, you are the invitation, and start small. Whatever it is, whether it's one Saturday a month that you're going to do, whatever it is you're going to work on for yourself, and just build it from there. You just have to start with something and find a, what do they call it, a, oh gosh, not a, an accountability partner. Find someone who's in a
Yeah.
similar space, that saying like, you know what, like I need to get out of this rut. Like find someone, identify. I guarantee you there's someone in your circle who's just looking to have someone to say, hey, did you write, did you do a little bit of writing this weekend? Like that's literally what it is. It's no different than when I have a group of girlfriends that we, would do, boot camp and spa weekends and those types of things.
Yeah.
How are you doing with the diet? We all stop drinking, soda at the same time. There's like little things you just start doing together, and you just grow it from there. So I think that's it. You just have to find that time to do it. There's a lot more hours in the day than you think.
Well, Danielle, hang tight after we stop recording, but I want to thank you for showing us what it means to walk in power and purpose for women who's creative and who's strategic, soft and strong. You're a masterclass in balance and brilliance. And that orange is popping on you, honey. I got to tell
Well,
you,
thank you.
that orange is popping and that collar is popping even better.
Thank you.
Y'all, if this episode doesn't make you want to rewrite
Thank
your
you.
bio and claim your seat at the table with style, I do not know what will. Be sure to follow Danielle's work. I'm going to drop everything in the show notes so you can watch the documentaries if you haven't. I just want to thank her so much for joining us. Keep shining and thriving and being the queen that we all know you can be. And so till next time, queens, see ya.